Welcome back to me or to you or however you want to see it to another weekend reading. It is Wednesday, so it is time for another Wednesday, another weekend reading. That's what I fucking say. How do I always forget that? Whatever. Anyways, some guy making fucking noise outside, so of course. Anyways, let's get to it. What did we have last week? Alright. Well, if you remember, last week we had Strange Academy, Volume 2, Bright Side, which was a fairly good read. We had Batman, Last Night on Earth, which was also pretty good. And we also had Once and Future, Volume 3, The Parliament of Magpies. Now, I think I said last week that I predicted that this would be my favorite of the week, and I was right. It was Once and Future. Once and Future is a really good book. Kieran Gillen, who does the writing, is shaping up to be really one of my favorite writers nowadays. And the art by Dan Mora and let's see, is that who does the art? Yeah, Dan Mora, and the colors by Tamra Bonvillain. I don't even know how. I think I'm saying that name wrong, but it all comes together to just be a beautiful looking book. And like I said, the writing by Kieran Gillen is fantastic. As for why it's called The Parliament of Magpies, that's really only significant to like the first few pages of the book where you see a Parliament of Magpies. As to what the book is, we're in the third volume to kind of just play catch up. It's about a family of English monster hunters who have basically been doing this for generations, and they kind of come across this new problem of they have to deal with the reemergence of King Arthur, who's not a good guy. And basically it's the danger of a story and how much power it has over society, and how like a story itself can become a living thing and the characters in it can become living, so that like some people can either take on the roles of certain characters, or a undead version of the character itself can come back. And that's what we're dealing with here. So you have it's sort of a rift in the family because members of the family are fighting it, but members of the family are also part of this conspiracy working with King Arthur. So there's this undead King Arthur. There's a version of Merlin. One of the heroes is a version of Percival. His half-brother is now this monstrous version of Sir Gawain. We see a version of Sir Lancelot. We see a dragon. We see a version of the Green Knights. I thought there was something else, but I can't remember what. But it's just, you see all sorts of crazy shit, and it's just beautifully violent looking and in a crazy story. And I always like Arthurian lore. I think I mentioned that last week. So I really, really love this book, and I love everything it has to offer. And I can't wait to see the next volume of it, because Once and Future, just fantastic. But that was last week. So what are we looking at this weekend? Okay, well, honest to God, I might not even be reading these on the weekend anymore. Your weekends are whenever your work week ends, so your weekends are your weekends. I think I've covered this before, never mind. What do we got? We got Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, We're Superheroes. This has been a good book lately. I'm a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I've mentioned before that I think the movies have fucked things up a little bit, but it seems to be getting back on course with this new series. Let's see. The new age of space starts here. They were soldiers, misfits, mercenaries, thieves, and a family. They were heroes. But times have changed. The galaxy no longer needs heroes. It needs superheroes. Now when the call goes forth, whether it's from a stranded team of planetary explorers or Emperor Hulkling himself, the Guardians of the Galaxy answer. As half the team defends the Kree-Skrull throne world against a deadlier threat than they've ever faced before, the other half investigates a terrifying sacrificial cult on a mysterious planet with the power to plunge the universe into war. New headquarters, new costumes, new teammates, an all-new enemy you'll have to see to believe, and a whole cosmos of trouble. Get on board, true believer. It's going to be the ride of your life. Collecting Guardians of the Galaxy 13 through 18 by Al Ewing, Juan Frigeri, and Federico Blee. Yeah, Al Ewing has been writing a really good story here. It makes me think of more of like the original Guardians of the Galaxy series, which I was a real big fan of. Let's see. Ooh, another good one. The Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 15. What Costs Victory? Spider-Man has been great lately, so we'll see. Nick Spencer's Spider-Man saga reaches new heights. The sinister war between Dr. Octopus and the Vulture is about to turn Spider-Man's life upside down, and the fact that King's Ransom and Chameleon Conspiracy already did that twice over might give you an idea of just how hard this latest crisis is going to be for the wall crawler. But as two of the deadliest teams of villains ever to exist go to all-out war with both Spidey and each other, what is Kindred's role in the chaos, and what is his horrific endgame? There's simply no way of describing how intense and impossible this situation is for Peter Parker. I'm sure he'll get through it, he always does. Or maybe not, I don't know. Collecting Amazing Spider-Man 70 through 74 by Nick Spencer, Christos Gage, Federico Vincentini, Federico Sabatini, Z. Carlos, Marcelo Ferreira, Carlos Gomez, Mark Bagley, Dio Neves, Ivan Fioriella, Victor Alozaba, Alex Sinclair, Andrew Crossley, and Edgar Delgado. There are a lot of Hispanic guys doing art and comic books nowadays. Not that I'm complaining. Their art is, fine, but it's just... I just noticed that. There's a lot of Hispanic guys doing art. Oh, and here we go. I mentioned Kieran Gillen before, and here we got another one by him. Die, Volume 4, lead. Another thing, like I said, I picked a Kieran Gillen book to be my favorite from last week. I think it's going to be next week too, because this book I like even better than Once and Future, or at least I have been so far. In the 90s, 6 teenagers disappeared into a fantasy role-playing game. Only 5 returned. Nearly 30 years later, these broken adults are dragged back to discover the game isn't finished with them yet. Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans team up in a comic where fantasy gets real. Die Bleed collects issues 16 through 20 of this critically acclaimed series. I think this might actually be the end of the series, if I'm not mistaken. I do believe that it's the end of the series, but I could be wrong. And now, a lot of great series have been ending in a not-so-great way lately. Like, their endings have been kind of anticlimactic and lackluster, at least in my opinion. But, as if my opinion really fucking matters. But, so... I have high hopes for this, but if this is the end, they might be a little dashed, or maybe it's just I'll be sad that a comic book I like has ended. But either way, we'll see. I predict that this will be my favorite of next week. But once again, there's a lot of good reads this week, so who knows? Just to give a little reveal the curtain, I'm kind of running out of things to talk about in my sort of third act of doing these, so I don't know how much longer I'll be doing them. I actually considered not doing one today because I'm kind of tight on time, but I had a thought of doing one, and I just it's not a big one. I kind of want to just get it out of the way, so I'm just going to get it out of the way, after I made it sound so fucking super exciting there. So it's another abandoned plot. Okay. So this abandoned plot I'm going to make quick. There's a character who was introduced in the 90s in Marvel. He's a Marvel Comics character. His name is Nighthawk. He's one of those weird characters that was created by the 90s to just kind of look cool and dark. And he was part of the New Warriors and everything. and he had an interesting costume and kind of just generic powers. But there was never an exploration into his background or where he came from. He had like a magic amulet that when he touched it, it gave him this weird armor and ability, and like I said, generic abilities. So anyways, he was like a middling success. He was just a character. He was just kind of the character who was never really popular, but he popped up every now and then. He would just show up every now and then. I think he was an Avenger for like 5 seconds. So anyways, fast forward to somewhere in the 2000s. I'm sure I'll put up when exactly in the 2000s this was. Fast forward to somewhere in the 2000s. They start doing a run of these cosmic event books. And in one of them, a book called The War of Kings, which, if you know any, it's a book about the clash between the Black Bolt and the Inhumans who were running the Kree Empire at the time, and Vulcan, who was the younger brother of the X-Men, Havoc, and Cyclops, who was running the Shi'ar Empire at the time, and they ended up going to war with each other, and hence being a War of Kings. But during that event, Darkhawk came into contact with someone else like him, a guy who called himself Talon. He had a similar armor, though his was blue, and it turns out Talon revealed to him that his amulet made him part of something called the Fraternity of Raptors, who were these ancient beings who have been who kind of sort of act as like secret manipulators behind the scenes of the universe, primarily with the Shi'ar Empire. And he revealed to him that he had a bunch of different abilities that he didn't even know, that he could transform his armor and to do different things, and he showed him all these different things that he could do. And it turns out the Fraternity Raptors are evil, as the names as they suggest, that they're secret manipulators. And because of this, he ends up manipulating Darkhawk, and Darkhawk kills. His body is used to kill Queen Lilandra, and it's really bad. But he ends up gaining control. Turns out the reason the amulet didn't just take control of him right away is because they never came in contact with humans and didn't know how to control them. But he ends up taking control back. But he still now has all these new nifty abilities. And at the end of the War of Kings, something happens where all the amulets. Apparently, most of the amulets of the Fraternity of Raptors were hidden away a long time ago after they were defeated the first time. But now something happened where they all came back, and they all started flying out into the universe. And Darkhawk was kind of, hunting them down. And a lot of them had different colors and shit. It kind of what the Fraternity of Raptors are has changed a little bit since their introduction. At one point, Nova, Richard Rider's brother, Robbie Ryder, became sort of like a de facto leader of the Fraternity of Raptors, but then I think he ended up releasing more or something. I don't know. The story keeps changing, but they're basically just bad guys. And Darkhawk or Nighthawk, whatever the fuck is. I think it's Darkhawk. He's the only one who's actually the good one. So sometimes they take control of people, or sometimes the people are just evil, or maybe they're just influencing. I don't know. But that's kind of the point. It sort of changes a lot. But they're still around. So they're not really the abandoned plot. They still, like Darkhawk themselves, they show up every now and then. And he and they have been wrapped into the whole cosmic side of the Marvel Universe, which itself pops up every now and then when people develop an interest in it. But that's not the abandoned plot. The abandoned plot is just as they were introduced. There was a Shi'ar, an Imperial Guard miniseries. Or maybe it was just about the Shi'ar in general. And it was dealing with, at the end of War of Kings, because Lilandra was killed, Gladiator became the head of the Shi'ar Empire. He's not anymore, but for a while he was. And so because of that, he stepped down as the leader of the Imperial Guard and made the character Mentor the leader of the Imperial Guard. And they had to go out on some mission. I forget, this was years ago, so I forget exactly what the mission is. But I remember at one point, they came in contact with 2 of the crystals of the Fraternity of Raptors, and Mentor, and I think the psychic chick, I think her name is Sybil or something like that, ended up taking the Fraternity of Raptor crystals so they could have the power to help them in whatever conflict they were in. But it revealed that the Fraternity of Raptors were now in the Imperial Guard, and that they were going to start manipulating the Shi'ar Empire again, like they had when they killed Lilandra. And they were now instituted in the Imperial in the Shi'ar's most, one of its biggest institutions. And then after that, they just weren't. The writers just ignored that little development. Every time we saw the Shi'ar or the Imperial Guard after that, there was no mention of this. It's like it never happened. Like I said, the Fraternity of Raptors get brought up and abandoned as anybody sees fit, like Darkhawk themselves. So yeah, it's like they kind of are and aren't an abandoned plot themselves, but that little part of them was an abandoned plot. That part of really ingraining them into the Shi'ar and showing that they're manipulating the Shi'ar just completely got abandoned. So they just kind of show up as villains whenever. I think there was another mini-series that I didn't read where they did some shit. I don't know. Like I said, they just pop up. They're just kind of like generic villains that get thrown in. I wish they would do more of them. I wish they would do more with all the cosmic shit, but they don't. So that was a really lackluster one. I apologize for that, but that's the best I had this week. So until next week, enjoy your weekend and enjoy your reading. Have a good one, folks. I'm going to go make dinner.